Ruler School is brought to you by Happy Little Hug Factory and these amazing patrons. Extra special thank you to guest lecturer patron Brody Harris. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video. Hey there everyone, welcome back to the Ruler School Teachers Lounge. It's been a long week of classes and we're ready to get started and talk about more Force of Will. As always, I am DMO73 and I am joined by Ryan Miles.
Hello.
Brandan Bremont.
Hello everyone.
And Frank Closser.
Lovely to see you all again.
It has been a crazy week for Force of Will, but before we get into the topics, I think there's some congratulations in order.
Yes, thank you.
Bremont.
Brandon.
Ryan,
good job, Brandon.
on.
Good job, Brandon.
Brandon, yay! We talked last week about how he was the only person who didn't have a paid invite, and after this weekend going down to GP Mexico, Brandon has taken first place, and now has his paid invite for 2 years in a row, going back to Japan. So, congratulations, sir. Did you have a lot of fun?
Thank you. I did. Mexico is a great country. I got to see a lot of Mexico City. Some of the Mexican players took me out to some food there, and we got to walk around a lot and see a lot of the cultural stuff there. It was a lot of fun. And not to sound like too much of a shill here, but it really felt like it was EG's vision of, connecting to the world, getting to go see another culture where we're all united through a joined card game, and that's the most shill thing I'll ever say, so don't expect it.
That's just beautiful.
We're
sounds
going together next year.
good. So, I guess I just have to ask a quick question. So, USA has a pretty consistent reputation for going to Mexico and doing pretty well in the events. Were you the only American player in the event?
Yes, I believe so.
Was there any animosity towards you?
I didn't feel like it. They were very, very kind. I mean, maybe like a few passing snide comments, but like really nothing bad. They were very welcoming. As I said, after I won, we all went out and had fun in the city. So it was, there didn't really feel like there was any animosity, no.
That's awesome, and I think as the biggest company shill of them all, that's just really good to hear. So, to go into our first topic, right? Winds of the Ominous Moon. Pre-release was this past weekend. Earlier in that week, we saw the full set released. So we've really had a chance to really look through every single card and pick out what are like the ones we really like. What are the cards that we're like, okay, this is really what I want to play. This is really what I want to goof around with. Stuff like that. Having gone into that, I figure let's go around the circle, or go around the room, I guess, and talk about what are your two favorite cards from the new set and why.
Am I first? Or?
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
I didn't know if I don't know what orientation we're in. All right, so my favorite card is Ray the Black Owl, which is obviously the inverse side is 0. Because I'm kind of leaning towards the format being pretty aggressive, it might not be as good as I actually want it to be, but just like this card just comes down, it can't be attacked, so it's immune to like the whole Pig Squadron's precision. You just have to have removal to kill it immediately, or else it's going to invert into 0 at the beginning of your next main phase. And then entities you control gain whenever this card is targeted by a spell or ability, cancel that spell or ability. This ability triggers only once per turn. So for IU, that means that your J Ruler just gets a free Windscluder Refuge once per turn. In the IMUL decks, like every single one of your additions cannot be targeted, like they have to have Heavenly Gust now to up your additions unless they're using like multiple addition removals. Like it's really easy to protect your altars. Resonators, like it's so hard to kill resonators through this card, and the only way you can even kill 0 without like having to go like ping off the barrier and then like kill it is like with Tama shoot it and then like Forbidden Art or something, or you can use like Black Tears or Dawning or stuff like that. But it's just like a super cool card. Really influences deck building a lot, and as long as aggro isn't super oppressive, I'm really excited to see that card just do a lot of cool stuff.
So this card was
Oh, go ahead.
One note before you go, and this is more for our readers or listeners. We don't have readers. Is that if you have 2 of these on the field, you still only get 1 instance of protection.
That is
because
true.
Technically the way it works is they'll both trigger at the same time. One of them will cancel the thing, and then the other one's already triggered, so it can't trigger it again. That's just a little tiny thing. I found that out last night when I was playing on Untap, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're thinking about that.
So I think this card was one of the big winners with the True Blade ban, right? Like if True Blade was still a card, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But it's a really cool card to come out of this, but I don't think it's very good in AU for one very specific reason, and that's if 0 flips, you can no longer target your own AU with Pricia's Leap, because 0 does cancel your own spells targeting things, entities you control. So like if the 0 flips, then your Pricia Leap like is canceled on your ruler, which is
so I was thinking mostly as like the Scheherazade matchup, where you're just gonna get like looped by Scarlet's Agony out of the game, and I do think Scheherazade is still probably a deck. When you're not like looping Scarlet's Agony anymore, but it's like those extra turns of like that kind of stuff can really be a problematic. So like giving your ruler barrier in that sense, like every turn, sounds pretty good. But also, yeah, you can't really play this card in Lumia at all, which is unfortunate because you try to flicker your cards and Zero's just like, hey, it's first targeted ability, can't do it.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Talk about my second card now, or do you want to like go around the room and everyone do one card first? Or
I think we can hear your other card. So what would your other one be? So 0, and then what else?
I'm not going to pronounce this correctly at all, but Adam Seacart, the Envoy of Valhalla. 0/1003 drop. It's a rabbit. Cannot attack or block. At the beginning of your main phase, you may remove target non-Magic Stone, non-J-Ruler entity from the game. Like, Brandon, Frank,
Gentleman Rabbit.
Jeremy, you guys all are greedy control players at heart. Like, tell me this card didn't just make you so happy.
Oh, yeah, I can totally attest to that. Like, I saw it spoiled, and I went, so I have to get this thing to stick out for 2 turns, and then I just start getting mad value every turn. Yeah, okay, I can make that happen. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Everything about it made me just like, because it can target anything except for a J-Ruler, right?
Anything. So no Magic Stones, no J-Rulers, just...
And it's not mandatory, right? And or does it specifically say your opponent controls?
No, no, it's mandatory.
Nope, it is. You may remove target...
No,
oh, no, it is.
Yep.
Dang.
Oh man, the fact that because it's either player's side,
it is
right?
either player and it's an optional ability.
And it's a you may.
Yep.
Oh, super excited about that card.
So it's a 0/1000. Like it's so hard to kill because it's got 1000 toughness. Like you could unseen pressure it, I guess, is the best card against it. But like my perfect world, I talked about this on one of my daily mileage episodes, is where super grindy control decks are playing both Ray the Black Owl and Adam Seacart, and you get out your 0. Both players have it a 0, and you're just trying to get out as many Adam Seacarts as possible to like kill your opponent's 0. And then both players start putting out more 0s, even though they don't stack on each other. You're just trying to make sure that like when one gets removed, you have a backup to try and remove their Adam Seacarts before they start triggering your 0s. That's my perfect world. That's the new frontiers I want to live in. I don't think
in my perfect world, me and Ryan are playing this mirror, and then I side into Mikage so that I can ping off the 0s.
No.
The 0s. No target things.
I expected it, Collinsville.
Saw 0.
I expected in Collinsville, Ryan.
I would side Mikage in like Imul, and I would play both of these cards in Imul, so it's gonna happen.
So
all right, we're doing it.
If you wanted to counter 0, there's actually an ironic card that counters 0, the same way Mikage does.
Is it
0's front side ability?
Oh goodness, he's right.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That's a little nuts.
I'm just gonna side for 0. There we go.
Oh goodness.
Those are my cards. Those are my cards.
Okay, Frank, let's go ahead and jump over to you.
Oh, I thought we were in a circle. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, and I'm next in the circle.
I see.
Calm down. Your priority is passed. So my first pick is Welser, the Archmage of Fire. He is red, and 3 for a 14/14 wizard. Whenever you play a chant, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once per turn. And then God's Art, Grand Entrance. Red, reveal it from your hand, put it into the field, and then at your opponent's next end of turn, remove this card from the game. Play this ability only during your turn. So
Card's gonna be interesting.
Back during right after ADK had come out, I made a silly blue, red, and white tempo deck using Lumia and the Explorer of Mount Howell, and it was basically just a burn deck that tried to play like Delver. It was just you stick a 2-drop early on, flickered a bunch to draw cards while you're just going bolt, cheap removal, bolt, and then at the end game you go surprise prokaryotic being, attack you for a bajillion D. And it worked way more than you thought than it sounds like. It sounds like this silly deck, and it worked great right up until they printed a certain card that we'll get to later in the episode.
True Blade.
Because 500 toughness is relevant. Welser slots perfectly into there. He's a cheap, like you can get him in very cheaply, and then you get to start copying all your bolts, which helps insulate you against discard. he's a great late game thing. So, like, if you find one early, you're going to God's Art, you're going to do cool stuff. But then if you draw him late game, you're like, oh, cool, throw out my 6-drop. And by this point, we're both pretty out of stuff. And then every top deck from here is just insane.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a card that has the potential to revive a pet deck. And so this one is one of my favorites in this set. And then naturally, there's Lumia still exists, at least for a few more months. So I'm going to try and find ways to give him haste and keep the God's Arted one forever.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. And what about your second card, my
Oh,
friend?
can I chime in here real quick? Because I actually...
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely.
After ARG Collinsville, the last actual physical article I wrote, I did a prediction video about what I thought the meta was going to be at ARG Collinsville. I was completely wrong. I was looking at control stuff, and then Lunia and Gil Alhama came out. I just remember looking at Frank's deck, and I'm sitting here trying to analyze the viability of Lunia, the viability of Alhama, the viability of Soul Combo, and then I just look at Frank's deck, and I'm like, what happened to this person to decide to put these 40 cards together into a deck, not play green in a forcible tournament, don't know what the heck's going on there, and just after looking at it, I was like, hold on, oh god, this might be genius. God,
so much
I
fun.
kind of liked it.
I mean,
I just remember.
I'm going to experiment with versions that actually have green, because green has gotten better over the course of this set.
Oh, for sure.
Or the course of this cluster, but just the Ooze is such a unique card that's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Welser specifically because, in my opinion, I think it legitimately is probably the only card that makes Scarlet even remotely competitive. And here's why. I talked about it in my spoiler article too, right? So simply, and I guess it combos with another card, the looking for the one with Feasting and Welser on it, where you dig 5 and look for some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is the fact that one, Severing Wind, if you copy something, Severing Winds doesn't touch it, right? Which I think is legitimate. But also, Ancient Impact can't be canceled by Severing anyway if it's your second card.
Oh, man.
So I think this Welser with the God Art is legitimately Scarlet's one way to win the game. So just be well, I've got 8 will and I have an Ancient Impact in hand. God Art, recover, kill you. Sweet. Okay.
All right, I'd like to raise you one counterpoint. While Ancient Impact can't be countered, Welser's God's Art can get low-rated.
Can be
So-
low-rated. Yes, it's no. Don't let me wrong. I'm not saying that Scarlet is tier 1, but I'm legitimately thinking that this Welser is
Also-
hands down the only thing that's going to let Scarlet have any kind of time in this zone.
I know. You also know that you need to be a rogue deck for that to work, right? Because they actually
Right.
put a counter that stops Ancient Impact this set.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Remove it from the.
Yeah, they printed the one that
chase.
just removes it from the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were
because,
like, no,
you
that
know,
was silly.
So just to
I really like to think
piggyback, there is
Force Welser's
some merit.
sitting around, just in case Ancient Impact is too good, we're gonna print this cancel spell. That's what
I
they're
know.
worried about.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, that was it, exactly.
So I think there is some merit to Scarlet. I have played exactly 0 games of Scarlet because she was printed at the same time as Scheherazade, and I was I'm not gonna bother. But I know a lot of people have, and people talk to me. But I think that because Trueblade's banned, a lot of the stuff that Trueblade killed is gonna come back, and now the things that Trueblade killed and forced out of the format died as Scarlet.
Scarlet
so
can.
she
Yeah.
might just rebound rubber band kind of thing coming back
Wait,
in the
was-
format. But I'm
What
not a
did
doctor, I don't know
Trueblade
what I'm talking
oppress
about.
in Scarlet?
Yeah. So no Scarlet can oppress the things that Trueblade oppressed. Is what he's saying.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
saying
because of
Scarlet
her.
is the
Oh,
new
I see what her
Trueblade.
front side.
Because of her
ability
front side burn.
is.
We'll get to more of that discussion later.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Frank,
So,
Welser
second
was your
card.
first card. Second card.
This one was initially a tie, but I decided to go with Arrival of the Hero. It is white for a quick cast. If you control a J ruler, you can pay white less to play this card. And you choose
Three
one.
cards.
Prevent all damage that would be dealt to resonators you control in the end of turn, or destroy target rested resonator. For reference, the other one was was Aura of Hope or something?
Yeah. Right. The untap.
Yeah.
Resuscitating Will.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. So, sort of since the end of Alice Cluster, they've been kind of shy about printing cards that really help you just play a J-Ruler deck, because obviously the Regalia were, way overdone, and just, pushed J-Ruler strategies really forward for a while, and so, at least from memory, I don't remember there being, much impressive J-Ruler support in, the entirety of Lapis Cluster.
Not a lot.
in the last couple sets, we've gotten this card, we've gotten Resuscitating Will, we've gotten the one that makes stuff indestructible, whose name is Flourishing Hope. And so we finally have some tools to help you like play a J-Ruler centric deck, and that is still one of my favorite strategies. Like, it's just so much fun to just slam the biggest thing onto the field and just be like, I hope you can stop me, because I'm going to punch you till you don't get back up.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit interesting because it is, weirdly enough, that double mode can kind of be relevant, right? In the sense that, like, so, especially for Tigris, right? Because he, one, can cast it for free to, you know, do whatever he needs to. But two, Tigris can already hit you in the air flying twice. And that spell also says destroy a blocker. So you can be like, hit you in the air twice with a pumped up Panda. This other Panda is going to try to kill you. Oh, you're blocking? Okay, we'll kill that rested Resonator. Now you're dead.
Right. When I first read Arrival of the
Tigris was
Hero,
the
I read it
J-Ruler I
as
was thinking of.
0 mana, your J-Ruler can't be blocked. Like, that's what I read Arrival of the Hero as, and I think that's pretty decent of its own right.
Yep.
That's
It's a pretty
Well, the
solid
thing
card.
is, like, all the modes are still, like, fine. Like, it's a fair card at 2, and then having the 0 mode is just crazy. Or maybe not crazy, but just really good.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited for this card because I've been obviously very obsessed with Imel for a while now. And I've had my brother on testing duty for the past couple days while I've been sick. And he's telling me that green, white, black Imel is just completely unable to keep up with Keurig, even with 4 miscalculations. Like, Keurig is just too fast. So I'm really looking at this card now, and I'm like, do I, like, if I'm playing Life-Stealing Altar turn 1, like, Guguya's Moonbeam Butterfly into Altar turn 2, and then, like, flipping in turn 3, and then I'm, like, almost dying. Like, I have a J-Ruler on the field. I would love to have a 0-mana kill target attacker on top of my 1-mana kill target attacker. Like, that sounds like it would be very, very impressive. So I'm actually really excited for this card as well.
Well,
Yeah,
and I think for
lots of cool
Imel, it's
stuff.
also. I think for Imel, the first mode's also going to be very
Exactly, yeah.
relevant. Because protecting all of your flipped Mephs and stuff so that she remains big is super important.
Agreed.
Also, for the record, Welser is the J-Ruler I want to try and punch people in the face with.
I mean, of course.
Big puncher.
Yeah.
Brandon, what do you got for us, bud?
All right, so I have actually been really excited for this topic since you told us about it a few days ago, because not only is this my favorite card in the set, this is probably my favorite card in the whole cluster. So we're getting Glint of Insight in the next set, and Glint of Insight, if you played Magic, it's Cabal Therapy, and it's 1 black for a Chant Mystery. Name a card, your opponent reveals their hand and discards all cards that share a name with that card. Remove 2 mystery counters from your J-Ruler. This card in your graveyard gains Remnant until end of turn. So here's the play pattern. You have 2 or more will and you're playing Rhea, or you're playing Gil and you've resolved Baby Gil earlier and gotten mystery counters, or somehow you've gotten mystery counters on a ruler that's not Rhea. You play Glint of Insight, and at this point, you can typically know some of the cards in your opponent's hand. It's like one of the important skills for playing competitive Force of Will is trying to figure out what's in your opponent's hand, trying to think about that kind of stuff. But even if you don't know anything about it at all, if they're playing Wind, they are playing Severing Wind, so you can just name Severing Wind. Then they reveal their hand. If they have Severing Wind, great, you just got a 1-for-1 on that. If they have more than 1 Severing Wind, you just blew them out of the water, and you're probably going to win the game. If they don't, then they don't have Severing Wind, so you can remove 2 mystery counters and cast it again for Remnant, and they're not going to have a counter for it. And then you can name one of the things you just saw, or if they happen to have a duplicate in their hand, you just blew them out again. So now imagine this incredible dream scenario in which their hand contains 2 Severing Winds and 2 of another duplicate, and this single card just 4-for-1'd them, and told you what the last card in their hand was. That's insane. Yes, that's definitely the top end, but the bottom end is 2 mana, take any card, which is like a card that we've almost played before. Like we had the red-black one that was like, look at their hand, take something, and like Tree played that for a little bit because it was like not
I don't
horrific.
think that one should be noted in the past because it also has the mode of Black Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, but like I liked that card for the
Yeah.
look at their hand mode. But yeah, it also has the Black Tears. But anyway, I think this card is really, really good. There are other ways to like find out what's in your opponent's hand. There's like tutoring effects that reveal cards if that's necessary. Anyway, I just really enjoyed this. It's a very skill testing card. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
I'm gonna be the stupid player about this card, and I'm gonna talk about. And Ryan can attest that I am a huge fan of Reyes.
Jeremy is
so,
indeed a stupid player. I mean, what? Sorry, what are we attesting to?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Oh,
You can
okay,
attest to
sorry.
me being a stupid player. That's fine too. There's a reason why I'm doing content in this season instead of playing. So the double dream scenario for a Rhea player like myself is to have 5 will up,
Sure.
and then do Judgment of Rhea. Look at their hand,
course.
force them to not see the Severing Winds, force them to not be able to play Severing Winds that turn, and then just use the double Glint of Insight to rip off the rest of their hand. And then I go, cool, so I have a 12/12 flyer that can kill everything every turn, and you have a Severing Winds. That's really helpful
Totally
for you
forgot
right
to
now.
mention that Thought Control exists, and you can also
There
just
you
play
go.
any of the other ways to look at their hand, and then Glint becomes like insanely more valuable. Like this card
Right.
just has so many ways to get 2-for-1s for like no mana. And it's just,
Yeah,
it's insane.
100%. This card existing is, I believe, the reason why Rhea's
yeah.
second sealed item was what it was. Like, everyone was so disappointed in Rhea's, like, oh, just get to peek at their hand once and force them to not play a card. And then, like, 2 days later, we saw Glint of Insight, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So
like,
we were talking about True Blade leaving and like what that does to the format, and you said that Scarlet might become good because it represses the things that True Blade repressed. So Rhea has this like 1 mana, destroy a 1-drop, awakening, destroy a 4 or less drop.
oh, yeah, Sword of the New Moon.
So
I
like
love this
I think
card.
that card is actually like a lot better than people give it credit for, because Rhea's
Oh,
never
100%.
been playable, and so it's obviously not playable outside of Rhea. But like when you have Glint of Insight and that card standing next to each other, suddenly like black control decks want to be Rhea, and I think that's really cool. I think Rhea is a neat ruler. So I really hope that that comes to fruition. We'll have to
Send
see.
me that silver. Send me that silver Rhea, Brandon. Let me
Yeah,
just-
I have a gold one now. Do you want
You
the
have a
gold
gold-
one?
You have a gold one?
Yeah, it was the California prize card.
Frank has the gold one.
All right, so if I can talk
was-
about Glint real quick. On my episode of Daily Mileage yesterday, I did my top 5 decks in the format, and I put Rhea as my honorable mention. Sort of the New Moon is like one of the reasons I'm like strongly considering that, but like in general, like just there's a lot of really good things going for black control right now, and Glint of Insight is like the dream, especially if you're in Rhea. Like I think Glint of Insight's a good card, even if you cannot produce Mintry counters, just because of the synergy with Thought Control and with like Blazer, the Legendary Thief, and stuff like that. But like the dream scenario of playing Rhea against an aggro deck, where you go turn 1 Thought Control, hit your 1-drop, turn 2 Glint of Insight, like hit a card or two, turn 2 Glint of Insight, call Severing Winds that I assume that you have in your hand because it's Force of Will, and then like Remnant it for the duplicate that you have in your hand. Like that's just like 4 cards for 2 cards, and you spend 3 mana, and the aggro deck has done 0 damage to you going into turn 2, and they don't have a 2-drop because you glinted it. Like that's the world that I want to live in.
The other thing is that there are some matchups in which a very specific card is what's going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're playing what's it called, the Umarat Tamal combo, like people have been talking about with like the new Through the Breach that got printed, where you just like put in Umar on turn 3. The only thing that really stops that is Lorite. So like if you have like Glint of Insight named Lorite and they don't have it, then you just win anyway. Like if your deck's one of those linear ones that only loses to a very specific card.
I'm on the flip side,
Yeah,
where I think Glint of Insight makes that deck not playable because I Thought Control.
Oh,
and
sure,
take your
sure,
hand,
sure,
take
because
away
Glint
the
of
Through the
Insight
Breach, and then
takes
Glint
away
of
the
Insight,
combo,
and then
yes.
take away like whatever else I want to take away. But,
Sure, sure. I agree with that sentiment,
Yeah.
especially since that deck's black. But yeah.
Yeah, can confirm 100% that Keurig Umir combo, if they don't have a Lorite, can do 11,000 damage on
Or
turn
they
2,
don't have a
turn-
Glint of Insight.
turn 3. So yeah, you definitely like that's definitely gonna be one of those rogue decks where like there are definitely things that can stop it. Like, you know, some people are talking about how now that Scheherazad's gone and Keurig's caving your rise, that like Lightning Cave might see some side deck play and stuff like that.
sure.
And like Lightning Cave is also definitely a card that really screws over that deck a lot, right? Because then the whole point is to go, oh, I landed this spell, I'm gonna play my entire deck this turn because I can get swiftness to everything with Pig.
So speaking of giving
but-
swiftness to everything, my second card,
Right.
Atarakia, the City of Verdant Green.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but I think that Glint of Insight is a very, very solid card. I would agree with you. What is your second card?
I just
though?
said Atarakia, the City of Verdant Green. So
Oh.
this is the other. So I obviously just picked like the 2 cards I actually think are just the best cards in the whole set.
For sure.
So this card is also just like the absolute nutter butters. So like it's green red for an
that means
addition.
good.
With rest, produce fire or wind will. If you spend this will to play a resonator, it gains swiftness as it enters the field until end of turn. So
Yeah. it's gonna be a card.
This card is
I don't think we really
nuts.
have to talk more
so
about
this
it.
card, when I first read this card, I was like, oh, I guess you only have to spend it on resonators, so that's broken. But at least like,
But you don't.
No.
yeah, right. It's just produced the will, so it's like just a better the one that used
Wetlands.
Yeah, wetlands. Like wetlands used to see fringe play, and now this card exists, and like, woo, man, like it's insane. So first of all, Lumia. So like the first place you go with this is like Lumia has
Rachel?
always wanted to rest the resonators that come into play immediately. Like you play something with like an insane enter trigger, well, you have to wait a whole turn before you can attack with it, so Lumia doesn't get to flicker it immediately. Not anymore. So like, imagine this. I want to walk you through like this absolutely insane turn. You're on the draw with Lumia, and you have the coin. Her coin produces red, by the way.
Oh yeah.
They go call a stone. We go call a green stone, energize, play Atarakia, pass. Oh, no, I'm sorry, don't pass. Tap
Oh, no,
Atarakia
no.
for a Sacred Elf.
That's what I'm
Tap
talking
Sacred
about.
Elf for a Sacred Elf.
Oh, it's pretty
Now-
baby.
And then flicker the Sacred Elf.
Right. Yeah, flicker
then
the
flicker
Sacred Elf.
so you
now
have
I have
2 will
two
on their
wind
turn.
will going back into your turn. When you pass to me, I'm going to call a stone and have 5 will. That's Jupiter will. Jupiter with swiftness if I want it to be. That's just casting Rachel with 2 will up to support it. Like, that is like I cannot even imagine losing from that. I don't understand like how that can exist. That might actually just be too strong.
That deck
And now
could
let's
play-
back away from like super broken and just move into like moderately broken, right? Just an aggro deck that just slams this thing. Like what's her name? There's a Fraley, the 6/6 that pumps something that it has swiftness if you have another thing, but you kind of don't want to have played a 1-drop so it can have swiftness, but you do want to have played a 1-drop so you can pump that 1-drop with Fraley. Well, now you can like play a 1-drop, turn 2, call a stone, play Atarakia, play a 1-drop, and then you have next turn you can play Fraley with swiftness. Freyla, sorry.
Yep.
But also Fraley. So like the Emule combo that me and my brother played in Minneapolis, it never really became very good. But I think this card is extremely good in that. And if you don't know what that deck is, that's totally understandable.
It's the clone combo.
Right,
It was
right.
on the deck. It was on the channel.
Go
We
watch
listed it on the
Jeremy's
channel,
channel on the Emule clone combo so you know that deck. I think that deck like absolutely loves this card because you can slam the Fraley
100%. I agree.
and it has swiftness, so you can just go to town immediately, and you can still make these Sacred Elf plays off of Atarakia, and like I don't know. I think that this card is probably the most meta warping card, non-ruler card that we've seen in a while. Since, like,
Just play
True
Lightning
Blade
Cave.
and-
It's gonna be okay,
right.
guys. Just play Lightning Cave. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Lightning Cave counters it, kind of, but like it doesn't. It's not even a hard counter because it's still just a mana rock. Like at the very end of the day, you just ramped yourself one. And,
Yeah.
Like
Right,
your
right.
your 1 mana enchantment countered my swiftness, but I still ramped one. I don't know. I love this card.
It's a good card.
I think that this is a very powerful card, and I might be undervaluing it, but I think it's like it's on par with the other broken stuff that other decks have gotten. Like when I see this card, I see Ground and Air Supremacy. I look at like Rhea potentially becoming viable. I look at the kind of stuff
Sword
that
of the New
Imel's
Moon.
doing. Like Imel easily plays like Moonbeam Butterfly, Lightning Cave to kind of mitigate this stuff, and it's like a grinding control deck. Kirik's just trying to rush you down pretty quickly, so like spending the mana to like even cast the addition's pretty weak. I think Scheherazad's like loading up on cleaning dolls because it's gonna play like Magic Crest of Darkness to flip its own stories back down now that Rune Story's gone. So just like accidentally killing your Atarakia City of Verdant Green in the process is even better. So I think there's actually like a lot of counterplay to this going on, like in the metagame that is forming in my head. And maybe I'm completely wrong and it's just gonna run away. But like I do think that it is like on tier 1 status and not like completely
Tier
insane.
-72.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
but like even if you
Right.
kill this thing, it rests immediately to like refund at least one of its
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like-
so it's pretty good.
So like it really only costs like 1 will, so your investment to getting blown out is like not that high. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's good. Definitely a good card. I think it's going to be interesting to see if everything else can kind of match it in terms of like, you know, if you're going to take the time to invest in this card, are the other decks going to have something to go, okay, well, since you spent your time investing in that, I can make this play, which will kind of counter it, potentially. Not necessarily like hard counter, but like, you know, kind of be like the answer-ish to it. So I'm interested to see if that can come out of what all the other decks have been able to like get out of this set.
Yeah. What are your cards, Jeremy?
My cards are silly and awesome, and I love them. So, my first one is Gemblade Amethyst. It is the 5-drop Panda 10/10 that says you may pay 1 colorless less to play this card for each gem you banish this turn.
This really tells us what kind of a player you are.
So, no, yeah, sure, fine. I wear silly gloves. Did we not get that? So, the reason why I like this card is because with True Blade out of the format, I think Pandas can now really safely play just a playset of Gem Mallet Panda. And I think that this card is, if Gem Mallet Panda survives, this card is crazy good. Like, you guys remember having free 12/12s or like, you know, 1-drop 12/12s with Gwyber? Guess what? This deck can put out 2 10/10s for only 2 will on turn 2. Like, all they need is a Gem Mallet Panda, because what it happens is Gem Mallet Panda, you'll start with a light gem, Gem Mallet Panda comes down, you get a light gem for playing a Panda, you get a light gem from Gem Mallet Panda, and then the next turn you go, well, Gem Mallet Panda, I'll sack my 3 light gems, produce 2 light will, I've sacked 3 light gems, so now I'll use that 2 floating light will to play a 10/10. And then you've probably played, you have 2 stones that turn, right? So ultimately you have a second one in your hand. You can go, I'm going to play a second 10/10. Or you just played a 10/10 on turn 2 for free while leaving up your 2 stones to completely protect it. I think, don't get me wrong, Pandas, I think, in New Frontiers are going to struggle. I just think that's the case, right? I think Pandas, with all the things that are available in Lapis Cluster, have a pretty big uphill battle. But I think after rotation happens, Gem Mallet Panda into Alexandrite is going to be a pretty big play for Pandas that I think some decks are just going to go, oh, okay. And to our previous conversation against, like, Rhea, right? It's a 5-drop. Sword of the New Moon, can't touch it. Like, so that's just going to stick. And, you know, if you can protect it with that 2 will that you're leaving up in the stones, suddenly pretty early, you're sticking this really big body, and you're in light, which also has a lot of interesting things like Zero's Magic Light or the new spells that we're talking about that, like, tap stuff or recover stuff or all kinds of stuff. And I just think this card is, like, you can play it pretty consistently in the deck and then just go, okay, here you go. So that's pretty cool that I think Pandas get this kind of, like, big early game beater, because Pandas up to this point have really kind of all been about, let's try to, like, combo off turn 3 or turn 4 by sticking all these mediocre Pandas and then playing Rose Quartz. Now Pandas can go, oh yeah, so we're still going to be ramping into Rose Quartz, but now everything's gigantic that we're playing before that. So I'm just excited to see what comes out of it.
I'm going to say, your play almost gets better if you're on the coin, because the play you just said leaves Rose Quartz at 1 mana, so if you go turn 2 Gem Mallet, get 2 Amethysts, and have the coin, then you can also play Rose Quartz that turn. Then you have 3 10/10s.
Right, but you don't really want to be playing it that turn because you can't give them swiftness, but at the same time, you can still just be like, turn 2, here's 3 10/10s, enjoy.
I do like 10/10s.
So that's, I think, just a cool kind of early game stick that Pandas have kind of been desperately needing, and I think that once cluster rotation happens, that's going to definitely be something that I think people are at least going to have to watch out for, because I think, you know, Gwyber was, I mean, sure, it's not flying, but massive body for practically free on turn 2 still sounds really good.
For sure. I do want to, like, chime in here because the Team CCG did a post in the US group today, and one of the questions that was asked to them was, like, what do you think is going to be the meta? And most of them are still testing, like, for European GPs, which are going to be cluster. And Lars, who's one of the new members of the team, did put Panda on his, like, top 5 list of rulers to look out for in clusters. So I think you are going to be right there.
Yeah. I definitely think that, like, black-white, like, junk Pandas, like black-white-green, or even maybe, like, black-white, like, weirdly enough, black-white-blue. And I have to look more about blue in cluster, but I think that, honestly, black-white base Pandas can be nuts, because also in cluster, Panda himself, right, is, like, the ultimate J-Ruler punish for, like, practically nothing. So, like, if you're going against Tigris and your opponent flips their J-Ruler and then doesn't immediately kill you, your opponent is immediately going to lose their J-Ruler. Like,
in cluster, you do have to watch your greed, because there are no stones to support any of the things you just said. Yeah. There is no white X stone in cluster.
Well, I mean, that's, not technically true.
Yeah, there's the Imul stone.
The Imul stone, which is base white. Which early game, you know, if
you can't see it. But I've played the Imul Stone at a GP, and I just rolled my eyes at you.
That's fair. But I think, you know, so maybe even it's just black-white Pandas, potentially. But I definitely think that Pandas at their core, I think, once cluster rotation happens, is definitely going to be a deck that, like, people are actually going to need to think about.
Once the final battle rotates, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. That too, for sure. Let's not talk about that. Let's save that for next week.
It's an inherently spend lots of cards to go wide very quick deck, which is powerful, and then final battle is the super cheap destroy an entire field.
Yeah, so once that, we'll talk about what happens if final battle rotates on a different episode.
Yeah.
My second card is literally me as a card. If I won Worlds, which I'm not playing this year, but if I got to pick a promo of myself, this would 100% be my card. And it is The Last Audience.
Oh no.
It is the 1-drop 07 doll. And it is me simply because every time I look at it, I cannot help but see the like dog sitting at a table with a cup, like when everything else is around him is on fire, and just saying, this is fine. So like this card with like just the artwork in itself, like a lot of people who know me know that, you know, I try to be as positive as possible in the community, and even when there's lots of stress going on, I'm like, I acknowledge your stress, but I still think it's going to be okay. Like, so I just see myself as being that dog in the community. Like, just like everything around me is on fire, the community's going crazy, and I'm just like, yeah, this is okay. And this doll, to me, just the artwork itself just screams it. But I honestly think that this doll, by the way, if you don't know its effect, it says your opponent must block this card if able, and your opponent must attack this card if able. And so here's one of the reasons why I think this card is probably one of the only reasons why Scheherazade is something that people should still be considering and looking at least a little bit. So first off, 700 defense is surprisingly resilient against like aggro, at least early game, right? 2, if you consider that a lot of the decks are now going to be playing Puppet Master, right? This can be a 0/7 attack magnet Tama at quick cast, right? So like just flash it in, draw a card. I have a 0/7 that you have to attack.
It would be a 2/9 at that point, right?
If you have Legend 3, it would be a 2/9.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So
they don't have
even
to
just
attack
by
it if
itself,
it's not tapped though. So you still have to block with it.
right? So
You
the
do if you have Precision.
imagine this again. So it's a 2. So it's a 2/9. So let's say that you have Legend 3, right? Let's say we're in that scenario, right? It's a 2/9. You flash it in for 1. You block their first creature, right, with a 2/9 that let you drew a card, and then it's tapped, so your opponent has to attack it. So now they have to force an attack on that thing, and you're like, okay, well, you killed it. Great. I saved myself 2 attacks, and I got to draw a card and replace it, and I spent 1 will doing it.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Like,
It's like a
it
better
just seems
Scarlet's Agony.
right. Except, like, to me, because of the direction that they're going to be going for, like, you need to play Puppet Master, you need to kind of be playing things like Doll Audience, and I don't think people understand that, like, Doll Audience is like the defensive Eva, right? Because it can pump itself, so you can have a 2-drop quick cast 8/8. Just saying. So you can go Doll Audience, flash in, pump, you know, +2/+2 on itself, block. You have a 2-drop 8/8, right? And then the other thing is, if Puppet Master's flipped, then you have a 2-drop 10/10 blocker at quick cast that draws you a card. Like, there are still definitely some things that lend Sherry now to rather than using the dolls for aggression, you use the dolls for defense, and you really hit that end game where Sherry just goes, okay, so let's talk. I've got 1,000,000 cards. I've got 1,000,000 will. Flip, get this maximum value flip off of it, and go, well, I've got a handful of answers, and I've got a 13/13 that if you hit me, you're going to take damage. I've got a 10/10 flyer, and I've got an 8, you know, this 8/8 that I just bounced your best card down to the bottom. Good luck! Because, like, Ryan, you definitely talked about the fact that, like, her flip is still probably one of the most valuable flips in the game, and it's still true.
Yeah.
And I think cards like this being able to be a magnet soak, or like an attack soaker, like that forces attacks to go that way, or even worse, it forces your opponent to use spells when they don't want to. Like, cool, you're being really aggressive. I'll block the first thing, that's not enough to kill this, and then if you want to hit me in the face again, you have to burn a spell on it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, right? I just think this is going to be the card that I think lets Sherry play the real long game, and I think just people need to recognize it. Also, back when I played Kaijudo, which was the game that I played before this, there was a card, for those of you who don't know, Kaijudo, we had shields, right? And that was kind of the way you like determined whether you win the game. So you had to attack your opponent's shields and then attack your opponent's face 1 time after they broke all the shields. But if a shield got broken or was attacked and it said Shield Blast, then you could cast that card for free immediately. And one of the cards that existed, they started making Shield Blast creatures. And one of them was called Sumo Artichoke, and it was a really high costed, like it was an 8/3. But its effect was it can come into play and immediately tap itself, and your opponent has to attack it. Like, all of your opponent's creatures have to attack it. So keep in mind, this is an 8-cost creature in the regular game, right? That only has 3 attack, and in this game, damage wasn't both ways, right? It was an 8/3, and it soaked up attacks, and this was played in like as 4-ofs in pretty much every control deck in Kaijudo, or at least in a lot of them. And then we're getting a 1-drop 0/7 that has quick cast, so we don't even have to worry about it maybe being in our, face downs, and we can just cast it and soak up attacks. So I think that it was well designed. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to say this. I think this card is beautifully designed because of the fact that it has no attack. It is a 100% purely defensive doll. And if they were going to give Scheherazade another doll, this had to be the one that they made, and I'm really excited to be able to goof around with Scheherazade with this card.
I'm definitely leaning towards a little bit less excited than you are. I was like...
Well, yeah, that's fine.
I think that it's super good with Puppet Wizard, but without Puppet Wizard, it suffers pretty heavily just from being a defensive card that doesn't actually generate any value. And I think because we have Scarlet's Agony, Scarlet's Agony will block 1 attack and will guarantee draw you a card. This will probably block 2 attacks, but will only draw you a card if you have the Puppet Wizard or the Puppet Maker. And because the aggro deck is Keurig, I'm really terrified of that new Shayla Keurig spell where it just deals 600 damage for 1 mana. That's that card terrifies the hell out of me. But I definitely think this card is going to see play. I don't think it's going to see high numbers, and I'm wondering if it's only going to be a sideboard card. But a 1-mana doll is a 1-mana doll. When you're playing a Puppet Maker deck, a 1-mana doll is going to be good regardless. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mainly just get super excited about this card because of the Kaijudo reference.
Yeah.
but at the same time, I definitely think that this was the right doll for them to print in this set.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Whew. So that is our cards. We've referenced it a lot, so let's just talk about it for a little bit longer. I think we were all kind of expecting, except for Brandon, and I didn't take the money on it, and I feel bad about it. We all expected Ruin Stories Eva.
Yep.
A lot of us expected Jin. True Blade got banned, right?
Yeah.
So we've already talked about it a lot, so let's just kind of quickly rehash. And Brandon, I'll start with you.
Utterly shocked.
If you, what do you think is the kind of biggest winner from the True Blade ban?
So it's obviously Sacred Elf.
That
but
card
we're gonna
being
say,
gone, what is the card that gets the most value out of that?
So the uninteresting answer is obviously Sacred Elf. Sacred Elf is one of the best cards in the game, and it was completely held down by True Blade. So we're not going to talk about that. That one's obvious. I think that there is a very powerful card that was printed in R2 that never got to see the light of competitive play because True Blade exists. Yes, I will tell you, but I would like to entertain guesses.
All right, hold on. You didn't tell me it was going to be R2. This is Time Spinning Witch, right?
Oh.
That's R2?
No,
which
R2
one's
is
R2?
R2 is Advent of the Demon.
Advent of the Demon King?
I am.
Okay,
Dang it, Frank.
Yeah, you're thinking about.
beat
Yeah,
you
you're
to the
thinking
punch.
Joan of Arc.
I am. Gosh.
Oh,
John
this is
Day
Joan of
Arc.
Arc.
Wouldn't
Oh my
miss the
God.
first waifu?
Okay, so you guys stole
Joan
my
d'Arc,
my
Mad
climatic
Maiden.
punch, but John Day Arc never got to see competitive
Yes,
play. But if you've ever gotten to cast John Day Arc at casuals, you might be like, this card is actually insanely powerful. What this card does is ridiculous. If you get 3 of this on the board, it just takes over the game. The being a 2-mana Swift 7/5 is insane. I actually think that the Keurig decks might start being black because there's a 1-mana 6/6 with Swiftness that you need to take damage to cast. And the most efficient way to do that is by playing Nullstone, which is a red-black stone. So I kind of want to play a Keurig deck that plays all red black stones, plays 4 of that Swift guy, 4 Nullstones, 4 John Day Arc, and then all of Keurig's Swift dudes. And yeah, you're missing out on green, so you're missing out on Severing and Fair Spells. This is probably just not good. And you're also
Are
missing
you
out
all
on
the way
Sylvia.
on Faith on the Darkness levels? Out of curiosity?
No, I'm not. I think that card's... Well, actually, you get Piggy off of that. So Faith in the Darkness might even be okay here.
Yeah.
But John Day Arc is a very powerful card that never got to see play. So I really hope that card comes back and surprises a lot of people because it's a really interesting design, and I just like that card a lot.
One of the first meta decks that popped up in the Green Black Fair Lumia Command format, the actual 80k format, was actually Red Black Green Keurig, and it played Faith in the Darkness, and it played Jeanne d'Arc, and this was I think before even we had the Red Black Majin. It was just an actual mid-range Keurig deck, and the reason it played the Faith in the Darkness and the green stuff was obviously Otherworld Dream Severing Winds was like you had to be playing it at the time, but it would like the targets for Faith in the Darkness were like Jeanne d'Arc, Seal the cat or McKay, Seal's Familiar. And then like it had like 4 Tama, 4 McKay, and like 4 Jeanne d'Arc, and it would just I think it even played like Sacred Elf, and you would just like spam 1-drops in the early turns, get your indestructible Jean out there so that you couldn't be True Bladed, and then because you had Play Dead, like you could use Play Dead on your Tamas and your McKays to like kill your opponent's guys, and then like they would immediately come back and immediately draw you a card to look at the top 3. And like I think that might be a bit too slow nowadays, like you're saying, but like that was like the first kind of deck that it's all playing, and like I could see it being red, black, green, like with the addition of like the newer black cards, like the Majin's Elf, whatever the heck it's called.
So imagine like just the
like,
Majins, the Hero Pig, Jeanne d'Arc, and then Play Deads to protect the Jeanne from losing her indestructibility. And then like you also have this insane high roll scenario. This is like very much a win more, but if you get 3 Jeanne d'Arcs on the field, like you actually just can't lose, like against anything. And like that's just
it's true because you can't even final battle them.
You can,
right, exactly.
They'll protect each other.
That's the out.
Oh, there you go.
Remember that card
there
exists,
you go.
yeah.
That's the out.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
so
okay,
here's,
so imagine
here's my
like,
beautiful.
So sorry to cut you short, Brandon, but I do want to hear everybody else's, and we do have one other topic we need to kind of talk about. So, Ryan,
I'm Ryan.
who do you think is the biggest winner besides Sacred Elf for the True Blade band?
Oh man, Jeanne d'Arc was a pretty good one there. I've got a beautiful infinite life gain combo deck that I'm gonna keep hidden forever. Oh man, I think it just has to be like generically 700 toughness 2-drops.
Yep, there you
Like,
go.
it's gotta be the fact that you can't play 4 Tama, you can't play 4 True Blade. Like, so if you want to kill 1-drops, you're gonna play like Lightning Strike if you're red, right? You're gonna play the 400 damage Keurig spell. That's something relevant. 600 damage is suddenly relevant because of the Keurig modal spell, but 7 is like suddenly actually good because you can't go Tama True
like a 1 mana 0/7.
Yes, exactly. Like a 1 mana 0/7 doll. Like Piggy is just like completely unkillable now because you don't have True Blade Tama. Like you have to like miscalc it and stuff like that.
Or you bounce it back to their hand and feel really bad about it.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. But like in general, just like 700 toughness is the new hotness, man. It's the new black. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, what do you got for us?
I think you already listed earlier that my personal favorite is another 7/5.
Yeah.
That's just a generic uncommon only Frank loves. But my real pick is the entire Dark Elf deck. So
Yeah.
literally
Yep.
the entire deck is full of like a quarter of the deck is 2-drops. And of those, the only one that even has 600 toughness is the Freyla Resonator.
Yeah, everything else is like pretty tiny.
All of a sudden you go from a spell that is just Doomblade Stoning to Death on Freyla and just a 1-for-1 on even your card that's supposed to be a twofer in the Twins. Now all of a sudden all of those have actual chance to do the value they were supposed to get.
Yeah.
So that's my pick.
Okay. I haven't really given too much thought to this, and that comes, I think, from the perspective of the fact that, one, my locals is kind of notoriously just, they really focus on just kind of playing for fun.
I am
and
heavily
2,
surprised that you were just not snap saying some panda that I've never heard of.
Well, I was about to say Gem
Blade.
Mallet.
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be.
Yeah, like, and I just and that comes from
Panda.
a perspective that comes from the perspective of the fact that I haven't really done a lot of looking into the competitive side of things nearly as much since making the decision this year to do content and streaming rather than playing. I definitely find it kind of almost weird to be thinking about like, oh cool, what's the deck that's gonna win the GP? Like that's just not a thought that comes into my mind a lot. It comes into like, what deck is gonna be something that people enjoy watching? And so I think that kind of definitely influences my pick for what wins out on the True Blade ban. I think there are probably better cards, but it was, a card that I think is gonna be a lot of fun to play with, and so I just have to stick with Gem Blade. Or Gem Mallet Panda.
Even like from a competitive
Panda.
perspective.
He says Soothsayer Panda.
Even from a competitive perspective, like I'm actually a little terrified of Gem Mallet Panda. That's the one that produces mana, right? Like I'm not crazy.
It's the one that you can sack stones to produce.
stack gems. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that card's actually like not a bad card overall, and if like pandas ever do become a viable deck, it's off the back of that card 100%. So it's something I'm definitely like, it's on the radar competitively. So
for sure. Well, with 10 minutes left for today, we've been talking a lot. I think we have kind of our silly fun topic, and this is going to be an introduction to, once you guys finish watching this podcast, I invite you guys to go take the link down below to get to our Facebook page, where you can kind of vote on a poll or give your thoughts about this question. We really want to hear from you guys. And the question is, what Wanderer card would you want to see reprinted in New Frontiers? Not a functional reprint, specifically a full reprint card. Like card for card, new artwork, feel free to update it. Cost is the same, functions completely the same effect, everything. It's not like
new card
Familiar of Holy
formatting
Wind.
if it's old enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like Familiar of Holy Wind suddenly becomes Tama Familiar of Holy Wind. That's a functional reprint. I'm talking about legitimately we have taken the same card and reprinted it.
So quick rules question. Wanderer card, does that mean if it's on the Wanderer ban list, it's not a Wanderer card? Or
Correct.
Correct.
Damn. Okay.
oh, we can't pick ban cards.
You can't pick ban cards. So we'll give you some moments to think about it.
All right.
My first card would be Glimpse of Kaguya. And back when we were getting Vingolf 3, I was a heavy advocate for Glimpse of Kaguya being one of the reprinted spells. This card just said it was a 1-drop, or it's 2-drop, blue and 1 chant instant that said cancel target activate ability. You draw a card. So it essentially is half of a Lorite, but it's in blue, which is the color it should be, and it cantrips, so it draws you a card. I think this card was really, really well designed. I think this card is right in Blue's color wheel. I think it's exactly what Blue wants to be doing, and I think it's where those kinds of cancel-esque abilities should be in this game. And so I would just love to see that card come back and in this era. Like, I think that Lorite has to stick around for right now because there really isn't a solid replacement for Lorite. Like, don't get me wrong, with True Blade gone, Abdul is definitely a card that could potentially see play, but now we have a 1-drop spell that burns something for 6, so that immediately eliminates that as an option. Replacing, if we could find something to replace the canceling of automatics like Lorite does in blue, and then we brought Glimpse of Kaguya back as a full reprint in blue, I think you would see some really cool stuff, and I'd really enjoy playing around with that.
Yeah,
For sure.
I definitely like that over Lorite, like 100%. I think the card's just like what Lorite should
Also,
have
your
been.
other card in blue is Keys' Call. It's already there.
Right. Well, that's only Resonators, so I would want something that can like
But then
cancel
it's only a
automatic
1-drop.
abilities.
I want to cancel Thayer's Enter ability. That's specifically
There
what I
you
need.
So I'm ready on mine if we want to.
Brandon, go ahead.
Okay, so I know we just lost True Blade, but I think I'd still reprint Space Time Anomaly.
I knew it.
Yes.
Oh no, I wanted to
Yes.
guess it. I wanted to guess his card, and I completely forgot because I was so focused on thinking of my card because you took away Guinevere, and I knew he was.
Yeah,
gonna say
my
Space Time.
original was going to be Guinevere, by the way. That was 100% my
Because
first
we're the
pick.
same person, Brandon. Oh
Right,
my
exactly.
God.
So I was 100% going to say Guinevere, and then I read this and I was like, Wanderer card. Does Gwyn not count as a Wanderer card? But anyway, Gwyn's the best. But Space Time Anomaly
Space Time.
also draws cards. It's a recurring theme with cards I like. So it does a lot of what True Blade does in a much fairer and yet somehow still more broken way. So in a colorless world, Space Time is probably is better than True Blade because it draws a card and replaces itself. But it's color locked into blue and black, which I think is a really cool deck building restriction. Like I enjoy these cards that have very powerful multicolor effects that lock you into a non-green color. And so I think Space Time is great. Like if Space Time got reprinted, you could really see control decks that are either blue, black, green, or like blue, black, something else, because Space Time can just fund an entire deck. You can neg 10 anything, draw 2 cards for 4, which is a powerful mode, or you get the stop aggro for a little bit, draw some cards, stop the True Blade.
Yeah, pay two life gain.
But it also, like, not being 1 mana lets, like, it doesn't completely oppress Sacred Elf. Like, Sacred Elf, you can still play it, get a turn out of it, and then I kill it with Space Time, or I energize and kill it with Space Time, and that's, like, fair. And so, I don't know, I think Space Time is a very well-designed, very fun, awesome card, makes a format more healthy by just existing.
Yeah, awesome.
I've been
So
thinking about all the
Ryan, you got it?
Yeah, I've been thinking about all the discard cards I love. Like I love Lapis's Darkstorm, but it's too slow for the format. And I'm a filthy spike player, so I have to think about competitive viability before I can even like think about how cards are good.
Are you about to say Soul Hunt?
I was thinking about Soul Hunt too, and I'm like, Soul Hunt's
Hunt's
pretty
standard.
good, but it's not it. What I'm thinking, man, I want Robe of the Fire Rat back. I want to say, hello,
There you
Red
go.
Deck. Go F yourself, because I absolutely hate red decks. They just make it so I can't play my greedy control decks, and I have to play, like,
Wait,
pretend
hold up.
control
Your
decks.
anti-red hate card isn't down the drain?
No, down the drain I have to, like, I only kills one thing. Like, Robe of the Fire Rat, I just kill something every turn, and I have, like, more time to, like, kill other things. Like, Robe of the... And it's, like, it's an addition. Like, red doesn't want to play addition removal, but now they have to because I'm playing Robe of the Fire Rat. Like, I'm going to main deck Robe of the Fire Rat. I don't even care if Reflect's banned. Oh, I should have said Reflect Refrain, by the way, since he's not banned in Wanderer, but Robe of the Fire Rat is what I want to see right now. I hate red decks with a passion. Kyron Lucas, I hope you're listening. God, I hate red decks. Even though my
isn't
first
Robe
GP
of the
win was
Fire
with a red
Rat
deck.
itself red though?
Yeah, Robe of the Fire Rat's
Yes.
red, but like I'm gonna
Okay, but
play.
you said
I'm
you
gonna
just
play
hate
like
red decks.
I'm gonna play green, red, black like Lumia, and I'm gonna play End of
okay.
Days. I'm gonna play Blazer. I'm gonna play Wellstar. I'm gonna play like
Gotcha.
full control discard mid range nonsense. But
So-
I'll have red to play Robe against the aggro decks. That's what I want.
Just,
If
just
you like,
for
con-
this.
if you like control mid-range discard nonsense, are you aware of the card Nyarlathotep, the very first one?
Oh,
That's
it's his
my
favorite card.
in the entire game. Yeah, but I don't think
Yeah, it's his
Incarnate's.
favorite card in the entire
I don't
game.
think Incarnate's
That was
healthy
actually my
for
guess
the,
after you said that Gil Lapis's Darkstorm was too slow.
Yeah, no. I would love to see it, and like my original pick was gonna be Sign of the Future, but like those are mechanics that aren't in the game anymore, and I think that's
Right.
good. Like I don't want chance standbys anymore. I don't want Incarnate anymore. So my pick is Robe of the Fire Rat.
Frank?
All right. So if Brandon likes cards that randomly staple draw a card on there because that's what gets him off, I enjoy fighting. We've established this. So I picked a card that's 2 cards in one and lets you fight stuff. So I have Slayer of the Overlord Prisia.
Yes,
It's a green
yeah.
and 1 for a 4/5. When it jumps into play, it points at something and punches it, and then asks it to punch it back. You
Politely.
can pay colorless to just pump it up, and then it has shift. So on the backside, it's a 5/5 that's secretly... No, it was Valentina, the better person. And then when it dies, you just gain control of something.
Yeah.
It's
This card is how I fell in
amazing
love
and
with Lumia. Like, oh my god.
Yeah,
keep
it
talking,
was.
The
Frank.
card
Keep
is
talking.
like amazing in any like mid-range deck. It's also great in any format where Sacred Elf exists because just turn 2, you're like, no, stop that. We're playing with this much mana, and then later you flip it and go, come at me, bro. I'll just take whatever big thing you were ramping into anyway.
There you go.
that card.
Also, there is
Oh,
an Uber version of it, and it's not a
Oh,
ruler. And I
gosh.
want an excuse to sleeve that up again.
Do you have one?
Yes,
Oh,
I
I'm so
do.
freaking
The
jealous.
fact that that card's
I-
backside is blue and it pairs so good with Bear Magic, just be still my beating heart.
So we have so yeah, like I said, those are our 4 cards. So Brandon's card was, once again, go ahead and recap. Brandon,
Space Time Anomaly.
Space Time Anomaly for Brandon. I had Glimpse of Kaguya. We have, for Ryan Miles, we had,
Robe with a Fire Rat, baby.
and for Frank Closser, we had.
Slayer of the Overlord Prisia, Possessor Princess of Love Valentina.
So go ahead and head over to the Ruler School Facebook page where you will have a poll there, and let us know what your guys' thoughts. Who was which one of those 4 cards would you want to see reprinted? And then also, once you voted, go ahead and let us know what you would want to see reprinted on your own from the Wanderer format. Remember, no cards that are currently on the ban list for Wanderer can be picked. So that is actually it for us this week. It has been a wonderful time talking to you all about some pretty awesome topics. Next week, we are going to be kind of talking about the new cluster. Hopefully we get a little bit more information by then, but I think I just want to really dedicate a pretty good sized discussion about what's coming out of this new cluster, what the kind of new direction of the game, like mechanically is, with what we know so far, as well as the distribution and like talking about the products that are coming out to launch the new Valhalla cluster. I really think that it would be interesting to have that conversation all together. And we will also be talking, Brandon suggested, and I think it's a wonderful idea to really take advantage of this group of fine people, to talk about advice and tips and tricks for those people who are in that, I guess, the bubble gap where like you feel like you're really good enough to be able to top or win events, but it just seems to always come up short a little bit right near the end or in the middle, or something happens that just kind of always leaves you a little short. I think that there's definitely a lot of cool things that this group can kind of do to talk about that. And we will also be joined by one of our patrons next week. Our guest lecturer patron is going to be joining us next week as part of that discussion, and so we will look forward to hearing some of his questions as well as his participation in the conversation. So, as always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been myself, Jeremy, Ryan Miles,
Hey!
Brandan Bremont,
See ya.
Frank Closser,
Later.
and we'll see you guys next week.